Welcome to MediaMelanieTV. I'm Melanie, and today I'm back to talk about Dexter Resurrection on Paramount Plus with Showtime. We're on episode 3, and it's called Backseat Driver. We got some killer cameos, a literal serial killer dinner invite, and a not-so-great rideshare driver in Dexter. In today's review, I'm going to share my initial reaction, the highs and lows from the episode, go over some basic plot points, and take everybody's temperature on where you land so far with this latest Dexter spinoff. I'm just gonna say this. I did not love New Blood. It was not my favorite. Original Sin was good. I liked getting the prequel, although it didn't feel quite as Dexter as Resurrection does. And for obvious reasons, we didn't have Michael C. Hall as a visual in Original Sin. We did, of course, have him narrating, and I think Patrick Gibson did a great job playing Dexter, but to get Michael C. Hall back as Dexter, back in the groove, getting somebody back on his kill table, and this game of cat and mouse between Dexter and Batista. Plus, we got Masuka and Quinn. I could not have been happier to see both of them. What a wonderful callback to the OG Dexter, and especially after we got to see young Masuka in Original Sin, getting the original Masuka back and in tandem with Quinn, here for it. In my last video, I feel like, okay, maybe I was a little bit harsh on Harrison. It was very Harrison heavy in the first 2 episodes, but at the same time, that's something to be expected because a big part of the show is Dexter grappling with his dark passenger, his urges to be a serial killer, but also the fact that he's a father and he's trying to figure it all out, how he can balance these 2 things. And that's really been an ongoing thread woven through all of the Dexters, how he can maintain a semblance, a work routine, and a normal life while also keeping with his code and killing people. I think now in this 3rd episode, we have settled into a nice place of all the nostalgia, the darkness, the classic voiceover. It feels very Dexter-verse, and I think Clyde Phillips has done a wonderful job recreating that early vibe we got from the OG Dexter and being able to bring it alive again almost seamlessly by bringing Michael C. Hall back, who looks like he hasn't been away from the role of Dexter for very long at all, even though it has been years. He's such a natural for this role. And at this point, my expectations for this season are actually off the charts. Love having Dexter back, but also really looking forward to all of these guest stars as well. Queen Uma Thurman was back in this episode. I love her, and I cannot wait to see the interactions between all of the other guest stars, including Peter Dinklage, Neil Patrick Harris, David Dastmalchian. I mean, there's so many big names that we are going to see here. And I've also got to say this, I kind of enjoyed the satisfaction of Harrison talking himself out of being very guilty or appearing very guilty to the police. He was able to think on his feet, and just when we thought that Claudette, the detective, might be getting under his skin, he's able to come up with a good cover story that's actually true and gets his friend to cover an alibi for him. So at least for now, suspicion is off of Harrison. And that said, I'm wondering who will be the next suspect. Will it be somebody that's very innocent and Harrison is going to have to morally grapple with the fact that he's guilty, but maybe somebody that he knows or cares for ends up taking the fall for it? And how is Harrison going to continue sitting with this guilt? Whereas Dexter typically gets this big release after a kill, Harrison's been a little bit on the struggle bus here, coming to terms with the fact that he carried out this killing and covered his tracks fairly well. And that begs the question, is Harrison going to kill again? Is this going to be too much for him to deal with? Will it be a father and son team? There's, of course, this generational father theme. We have Harry back again, helping him enforce the code, but also reminding him that he's a dad now too, and it's his job to carry on this cycle that Harry started by allowing Dexter to give in to his urges, but in the best way possible. Now, when I say best, obviously murder is not good, but at least he's killing other bad guys. And just the overall vibe of this season altogether, from the visuals at the start and the end, it's really giving comic book hero, like a dark Batman. Dexter is here in New York, successfully stalking his next victim, and I love seeing Dexter stalking. That's one of my favorite things. When he breaks into Ronald's apartment after figuring out the whole background check situation, One of the funniest moments for me was when he was looking for the trophies and he looked at the air conditioner and Harry's like, no, that's too obvious, or been there, done that, or something. Said with the most subtle comedic undertones, because that's obviously where Dexter hid his blood slides. So the self-awareness to call back to the original Dexter and not necessarily mock itself, but tie in the old school Dexter with the new school, I just thought that very subtle small line was very funny. And really overall with this episode, Dexter is back, baby. We are all back in the Dexterverse. The first couple episodes maybe took a little while to find its footing. There were definitely some plot conveniences there as well, but I'm willing to overlook all of this because I feel like I'm living back in the early Dexter days again, and what a good feeling that is. All right, before I get more into my review of Dexter Resurrection, Season 1, Episode 3, be sure to please like this video and hit that subscribe button. I am on a journey to be a full-time content creator, and every single time you watch, you like, you subscribe, comment, it really helps me get one step closer to that goal, which I am working very hard at, by the way. And just thank you to everybody who's been tuning in already. I love talking about TV shows. I'm also covering other shows here on the channel, so also take a look at those. Time to dive back into Backseat Driver. I am enjoying the pacing in terms of Dexter being able to find Ronald, break into his apartment, and by the way, the whole thing with the fingerprints on the keypads, that is quite overdone in a lot of these TV shows. Most recently, a show that I've covered, Poker Face. And I think sometimes it's definitely necessary for something easy to move the plot forward. So yeah, okay, they do that a lot in TV shows. It's fine, and moving on here. Dexter is in the rideshare game, and he's not doing great. His rating is pretty low. Fortunately, his friend is able to put him back on track, show him he needs to anticipate the needs of his passengers. Gets him all set up with all the waters, gums, condoms, everything he needs, including a picture frame, to which he does not actually swap out with the picture of his actual child, Harrison, which, by the way, makes sense, just given everything that's happened. And something Dexter did anticipate was the fact that the dark passenger was going to be using one of these wires to strangle him from behind. And as he was getting strangled, I'm like, how is he not breathing well? Of course, we figured it out because he had this metal neckband on there to prevent any damage. And Dexter's able to now get those syringes back in play. We actually hear him call his supplier, and they're like, oh, nice to see you back, doctor. And yeah, baby, Dexter is back. He did drop the syringe for a quick second. I thought, oh no, there's going to be a little struggle here. But Dexter, being Dexter, is able to successfully jab that needle in and do what he does best. He puts the dark passenger Ronald on his kill table. I love this visual. The body wrapped in the saran wrap, the knife plunging through as the blood gushes out in this little red river. And did anybody else feel the literal release when Dexter put that knife through and is able to complete another killing to give into his dark passenger? Love this. There was one little thing I noticed, though. At one point when Dexter was going into Ronald's apartment, he actually sliced his wrist. Will there be just a minute amount of blood that could come back and get Dexter implicated in some way, or was that just nothing? I tend to think it's something because they wouldn't have showed us that scene if it didn't mean anything. So I guess we'll just kind of keep that in our back pocket and see what ends up happening. And luckily, after Dexter is able to get Ronald on his table, he learns about that invitation and the cash. I'm on the edge of my literal seat here, waiting for Dexter to pose as the dark passenger, attend this serial killer party that Uma Thurman is so thoughtfully putting together for her boss. And speaking of Uma, I think they're giving us just enough of her to make us excited for what's to come, infuse one of these big name guest stars early on before we get to the rest of them. But also, she's essentially setting the literal table for this dinner. 6 attendees in all. And Leon Prater, who's in charge of all this, he's a collector. He wants to collect the trophies and bring all of these serial killers together. I'm interested to learn more about his character and the power that he has. The word governor was floated there from the woman working for Uma Thurman and Peter Dinklage's character, Leon. What sort of connections does this man have? What is he going to use all of the serial killers for? And I'm wondering if this whole comic book vibe is going to give us like a Marvel collection of these serial killers represented somewhat as superheroes, and potentially setting up for these to be Dexter's ongoing targets throughout other seasons of Dexter Resurrection as well. Because let's face it, I don't think we're just going to have one season where Dexter takes out all of the biggest serial killers. That doesn't necessarily make sense. So I think that they are really laying the groundwork for multiple seasons of the show, keeping these guest stars engaged, and then giving the opportunity for them to come back and return when it makes sense. Because I'm not sure if we're going to have a lot of scenes with all of them together after the dinner. Will they be meeting regularly? Lots of questions. And by the way, let's not forget, VIP number 5 is vegan. Is this some sort of setup for a cannibalism plot? I'm not sure, but why bring up that they're vegan and how does this come into play? Lots of seeds being planted, and I'm here to water all of them and see how they grow. Let's talk Batista, Masuka, and Quinn. The Florida vibe is all back, tropical cocktails, Batista, Masuka, and Quinn meeting for a drink. Batista is letting on that he is on to something. He doesn't want to let it out just quite yet. I'm hoping that he does enlist at some point Masuka and Quinn to assist him. I'm assuming that he will also make his way to New York City and work with the other detectives there who are on the case. Not sure how the connection will necessarily come about, but hopefully this wasn't the last we will see or hear of Masuka. That laugh just gets me every single time. And I love Quinn. I think he was a great character. So hopefully we're going to get more of them. But at the same time, if Angel is not being very forthcoming about what exactly he's doing, maybe it'll be more a situation of they'll realize that Angel goes offline or is in some sort of potential danger and they go after Angel to save him, potentially save him from Dexter. The big question for me here is, will Angel end up on Dexter's kill table at some point? And if so, when? Will season 1 be this whole cat and mouse thing that ends with Angel on the table getting killed by Dexter? It's hard to say because, I think I could speak for many of us that Angel is definitely a fan favorite within the whole Dexter verse. We got young Angel in Original Sin. We've got Batista back here now investigating. And if Angela didn't take Dexter down, then maybe Angel will be the one to do it unless Dexter takes him down first. But the moral dilemma of Dexter having Angel on his table, a longtime friend who he's known since the very beginning of his career in police, would Dexter even be able to do that? Dexter has a code, and Angel is not a serial killer, so I can also see that Dexter may not take him out unless he just absolutely has to. He's been known to go after people in his circle before, and even though he didn't necessarily kill them himself, Dexter does not have clean hands in any of this. What do you guys think? I know it's early on to really pose the question, but do we think eventually that Angel will end up dead by Dexter's hand? Will he end up catching Dexter? And if so, when? Are we talking like multiple seasons here? Because if Angel's not the one going after him, as much as I love the new detective Claudette, there would be a lot more satisfaction in Angel actually being the ultimate person to do that. Fatherhood is obviously a very big theme in Dexter as a whole. We have Harry being Dexter's conscience, and also we have Dexter being a dad to Harrison and debating on what his next move is in terms of protecting his son, just staying close enough to keep an eye on him. Obviously, it's a very strained relationship. Harrison tried to kill him. And eventually they're going to have to come back together. How is that reunion going to go? Not to mention, Harrison doesn't even know his dad is still alive. But the irony in all of it is the dark passenger, who is inadvertently named after Dexter's dark passenger, of course, unbeknownst to Ronald, his whole motivation in killing is tied to his father. His father was a cab driver, and then all the rideshare drivers came along and really stole his business. So Ronald is doing this to avenge his father's loss of income, loss of his career. And I just found that really interesting as well, just given the theme of fatherhood and Dexter as a whole from beginning to end. It makes sense. And I also enjoyed just seeing what the motivation was of one of these killers, and also eager to see the motivation of the other serial killers who we are eventually going to be meeting this season. It's going to be a killer season ahead. Another moment I actually loved from this episode was when Dexter realized a thumbprint was needed for entry to the serial killer dinner. The way he runs and takes that hand out to get access to Ronald's thumbprint so Dexter can get himself into that dinner, chef's kiss. I loved that. It was maybe a little bit convenient for Dexter to just find an incinerator in a bad neighborhood and be able to seamlessly get rid of the body, but again, totally fine. When he was the Bay Harbor Butcher, obviously he had a boat, so he's going to have to change his methodology in terms of body disposal, and maybe this will be his new thing. And just the overall tone and style and feeling of this season, the voiceover feels a little darker, the visuals feel a little bit darker. Dexter is on a very dark mission here as he's going to be joining this group of serial killers. We had the light, the bright, the tropical nature of Florida for many, many years. I like that the visuals of New York could not be any more different than Florida, and it sets a whole different environment for this season to take place. And I would imagine that subsequent seasons will also take place here in New York, but I mean, the door's also open. Who knows where they could end up going? There's just so much moral complexity with this show in general, which is one of the things that I enjoy the most, and how they explore this grappling with different decisions and balancing family, a personal life, and dealing with this dark, dark urge. And now, not just for Dexter, but also potentially his son, Harrison. I think this is officially the episode where Harrison won me over a little bit. That police interview, just something about it and the way he was able to pull it off and shift focus away from him, really genius. And that's starting to show that Harrison may also be making a dark transition and may actually continue killing as well. If so, like, who's his next victim going to be? Not sure yet. And there is the question of him and Dexter maybe killing together. Could they join forces like a Batman and Robin to take down these serial killers? Or is Dexter going to say, hey, I can't involve my son in any of this? That's really one of the biggest dilemmas at the heart of this whole show. The way Harrison is just tiptoeing and tightrope walking around the crime and living with the guilt and the potential that he is probably going to do it again. And whether or not this feeling of guilt will actually lessen with each kill or grow, and how that will impact Harrison as a character as he grows into young adulthood alongside his serial killer father. So I think the highest high for me in this episode, Quinn and Masuka, literally 10 out of 10 seeing them both back. I thought the whole coma sequence in the first episode was maybe a little bit much, even though, don't get me wrong, I loved seeing all those characters. Weaving Masuka and Quinn into a living storyline versus this ghostly sort of presence just worked very, very well. And it brings us right back to the original Dexter back in the Miami PD days. Along with that, I love Dexter's neck collar. It's the equivalent of a bulletproof vest in this case. Loved seeing Batista. Really enjoyed the visuals of the kill table. And I just could not be more excited for the literal table setting, once again, of the serial killer dinner helmed by Uma Thurman, putting it together like a brilliant event planner and giving no Fs that she's putting this together for a group of people who at any point could probably turn on her and kill her as well. A couple of lows from this episode, and these are pretty minor. The whole fingerprint on the keypad situation, that's something we just see a lot, although it did work in order to get Dexter into Ronald's apartment. And I guess just overall, we need to suspend disbelief that Dexter and the Dark Passenger Killer not only share this nickname or similarity in that Dexter has a dark passenger, this killer is named the Dark Passenger Killer, but the fact that they also look alike. I mean, back in the first episode when we first saw Ronald in the hoodie, I thought it was going to be Dexter. That's how similar they are. And yeah, their voices are different, but Leon Prater's not going to know what the Dark Passenger's voice is like. And I have all the confidence in the world that Dexter is going to be able to pass himself off as Ronald, no problem. But there is always the possibility that somebody's going to figure out that this is not the real Dark Passenger. I'm not sure exactly how they would be able to put those pieces together. And at least Dexter incinerated the Dark Passenger Ronald's body, so that way it doesn't come back to haunt him, similar to Harrison's victim in the trash bags here. And there was one little dangling thread there as well, the knots on the trash bags. The detective did notice that the trash bags that were out back of the hotel, with the door being left open all the time, which opens the door, literally, for somebody else to potentially be the killer here. What if she decides to actually keep an eye on the trash pile and put surveillance, say, across the street? And Harrison is continuing to work and he takes out another trash bag and she happens to see, oh, that knot is suspiciously like the one we found the body parts in. Wondering if that could potentially come back as well. Another thing Harrison's going to be grappling with is his friend who covered for him and gave an alibi. Will it somehow come back and maybe she sees something disturbing and says, oh no, maybe I shouldn't have covered for him after all, and perhaps she gets implicated in some way? I mean, that's also definitely possible. So, episode 3, what did everybody think? We've got Dexter RSVP'd for the killer party of the century. Harrison talked his way out of things, but is he going to be able to keep his urges and his guilt in check at this point? When is Angel going to make his way up to New York City? We know there's been a hit on his car, so it's only a matter of time. I would love to see Angel working with the detectives up there. And please give me more Masuka and Quinn at some point this season. I don't care when, but you showed them to me once, so now I'm going to want more. All right, everybody, be sure to drop all your thoughts, your theories, your highs and lows down in the comments. I'd love to see what everybody is thinking so far. Are you loving Resurrection? Are you still not sure? Let me know. And hey, while you're at it, please go ahead and like this video. Hit that subscribe button as well. It really helps me work towards this goal of being a full-time content creator, and I just appreciate everybody who is here watching. I'm also covering The Buccaneers on Apple TV+, The Summer I Turned Pretty on Prime Video, and hey, you're already here watching my Dexter Resurrection review, so you like dark shows? Give The Institute on MGM Plus a try. It's giving a very dark Stranger Things mixed with some Harry Potter. It's adapted from a Stephen King book, so you know it's going to be dark and probably horrific. The first 2 episodes started out very strong, so I highly recommend adding MGM Plus onto your Prime Video subscription. And while you're there, also binge From. There's 3 seasons, one of my favorite shows. I really appreciate you sticking with me. I'll be here every week with Dexter Resurrection videos. Very excited for this season. For me, episode 3 was really the turning point when I'm like, okay, I am on board. I'm not hating Harrison as much as I did before. Give me more Dexter and give it to me now. I'll be back again very soon, but until then, Media Melanie, clicking off.